Welcome to Struggles of the Spirit. I'm your host, the Reverend Leland Udell, and we're together again. That's neat. I really enjoy your presence. I wish you would be a little more verbal, but it's nice to know you're there and that we have a program to offer you. Remember, this is public access, which means the public has access to the TV studio, and you can say what you wish, offer criticism, advice, ideas, questions, whatever you'd like. And we are ready to receive those pieces of input. You can do it by phoning us at the TV studio, which is this room, and our microphone will be our mouthpiece on our telephone, and we'll hear you on a loudspeaker in this studio. So your input is very audible and very clear, and we'd like you to participate with us and to add your 2 cents. And if you're watching this on a weekend when there is no program going on, when I'm not here, or my guest isn't here, the way you give us input is to use the email address that you see on the bottom of the TV screen in your home. There is the TV email address for us. And so send us by email what you want to say, and then we'll get back to you with our own email or phone call or whatever you wish. So this is a two-way street, and we really enjoy that possibility. Public access is the name of the media, and it's special. So today we have a neat guest I've had here before, Bob Fenix, and he's going to talk about his flying days in the military, in the Army Air Force. But he is going to talk about the fact that he was flying recently. What was the day?
On June 28th.
June 28th. That's not way back when, but just this past month. So
Yeah.
it's really neat. There's no age problem with flying, is that right?
No.
So,
None. No.
I'm sorry?
No, there isn't any. You couldn't fly at any age.
That's different than automobiles.
Yes. Yes.
Now tell us how you got involved in doing this.
In 1941, in the summer of 1941, our government offered a program called Civilian Pilot Training Program, in which they would teach you to fly, and it would cost you nothing.
Really?
And so some of us young guys thought it would be nice to learn to fly, and especially it wouldn't cost anything. So in 1940, in the summer of 41, I learned to fly at the Burlington airport.
Right here in town?
Right in Burlington at the airport. And we flew Ronkas, which is like a 35 horsepower two-seater aircraft.
All of 35 horsepower?
35 horsepower, right.
My lawnmower might have more power.
Yeah, it probably did. So it was, we learned to fly, and then I remember when I first soloed it's a great feeling, because my instructor was, a fellow probably weighed 190 pounds, and on a little light aircraft, that's a lot of weight for a small aircraft. So we've been shooting landings all that morning, and in August of 41. And so finally, we made a landing, and all of a sudden he opened the door and said, "Okay, it's all yours." So I took off, and that's one of the great feelings, because then you got to remember everything that he had taught you.
You said he opened the door? What?
On the side of the aircraft to get out.
Oh, he got out?
Yeah, he got right out and left me.
He wasn't going to fly with you?
No, it was all on my own then. That's your solo flight, and I was flying by myself over Burlington, and then I knew I had to come down it, and I made usually when you make a solo flight, you probably make the most perfect landing that you'll ever make. It was an aircraft where it wasn't a tricycle like most of them are now. It had a tail, and the tail would come down and
A skid?
yeah,
A skid on it.
yeah, and so that's when I knew I liked to fly.
So tell
And,
us about what it felt like to
Well, it's
fly.
it's
All we can do is
yeah, it's really an almost a unexplainable feeling that you have when you're the first time you're flying by yourself and look up at the sky, and it's that solo flight is the most impressionable, I think, that any pilot ever experienced. Even I remember reading Lindbergh's book, and Lindbergh said the same thing. He was probably the greatest pilot that ever lived.
Really?
And
What made him so great?
well, he was so good at it. During the war, he would fly in the South Pacific, and he could fly an airplane and longer and farther on the same amount of gasoline that the other pilots would run out.
Really?
So he was very, very good at it. And of course, he made the solo flight from New York to Paris in 1927, which was the first time anybody had ever done it. And so he went down. He was a national hero. They had, of course, a big parade for him in Paris and New York City. So, and in 1941, I could take people up, and it cost only $5 to fly. I took my sister up, and I took one of my buddies up, and
Did you all have parachutes?
no, we didn't wear any parachutes, and we had no radio.
No radio?
It was all contact flying, and I remember flying out of the airport, and I flew over the top of Mount Mansfield, and I was headed back to Burlington, and I ran into a little squall, like where you could see nothing, and I thought, hopefully this will clear up so that I can see the airport to land, and fortunately the thing dissipated and cleared off.
But you had no air traffic control.
No, we had no radio or it was all contact flying, just visual. And so then the war, I decided to go in the Army Air Corps, because I got my license, I was a private pilot, and so I knew that's what I wanted to do as far as the military.
Well, had you flown as a job?
No, just for pleasure. No, I didn't have a job.
Like
as far as
carrying the mail or something?
No, nothing like that. No, I just was a fun. It's a fun thing to do, I think. And
I would think so.
so I joined the Army Air Corps as a cadet, aviation cadet, and there's a lot of pre-flight. We had to learn Morse code, and we had classes in Nashville, Tennessee, and then we had classes at Syracuse University for a while, and we had our basic training, which was quite different from the fellows that went in the infantry. We had our basic training at Atlantic City and lived in one of the hotels. And,
Quite different.
Right on the boardwalk in Atlantic City. We ate at
we have a phone call already, Bob.
Oh.
Great. Please connect us, Bill. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question for Bob.
All right, Bob.
Bob, tell me, what did you do when you had to go to the bathroom up there?
There was no facility, in those Arancas, and even in the Stearman, there's no way. When I flew last Saturday, June 28th on a Saturday, the fellow gave me a paper bag in case I got sick and was going to vomit, and he didn't want me to vomit on the aircraft.
Oh, dear.
Yeah,
That's all he was worried about.
yeah, I was worried about cleaning up the aircraft, but no, there's no facility. And when I eventually flew in B-24 bombers, there was nothing. I don't know what they expected us to do, but
You hold it, probably.
yeah, it was nothing there.
Well, a B-24 bomber going to Germany, that could be a long trip.
Yeah, yes, it could be.
Leaving from England?
Yeah.
I think it'd be too long for a woman, don't you think?
Yes, yes. But
Great. Well, thank you very much.
you're welcome. No, that was a good question. That I never saw anything for a facility.
Not even a jug,
No.
a plastic
Of
jug.
course,
They didn't have plastic much in those
yeah,
days.
no, yeah.
Paper.
Actually, I think plastic was started about 1939. Because I remember when I graduated from high school, the speaker at commencement was a man from Dartmouth, and he said that Dr. Burns was his name. He said that plastic would be the coming thing, and how right he was, because it's everywhere
Yeah.
now. But yeah, we, as I say, we had a lot of pre-flight, and there were a lot of fellows that wanted to be pilots in World War II. So there was almost a flood of us, and so the schools got backed up. We would have to wait until one got graduated and moved on.
No women who wanted to be
No,
pilots?
not in our group. No, there wasn't any.
Did
no.
you hear of any?
There were famous women pilots. Of course, Amelia Earhart.
Sure.
Everybody remembers her. And there was a woman her last name was Love, and she was a famous pilot. There were some that were very outstanding, but they were very, very, very few that were pilots. We ended up at Maxwell Field in Alabama, and we finally got through all the pre-flight there, and we were transferred to Cape Girardeau, Missouri, that's where I came in contact with the steerman, the PT-13, and this was in March 1943, and we flew every day there. It was out over the farms in Missouri.
So you got a lot of practice there.
Yeah, oh yeah, we'd shoot landings, and then of course the instructors would go up, and they would usually, when you're flying those small aircraft like we were flying, if the engine quits, you should have an idea about where you're going to land, always in the back of your mind. And so they would test you on that. The instructor would go up with you, and then he'd cut the throttle, and we'd come down, and he'd say, where are you going to land? And I knew he was probably going to do it, so I had some idea where I would eventually land. Of course, it was open farms and meadows and fields where it was be quite common and easy to find. And then, of course, before we would get near the ground, we'd give it full throttle and go back up. And but the problem what I had in 1943, as I was flying there, I'd flown all morning, and I came back and landed and was taxiing towards the hangar. And as one of the cadets was taking off as I had just landed, and I thought he was getting pretty close to me. So I got right off the runway, so give him all the room he wanted. And when I did, the wheels, we went in the soft earth because it was in March of '43. And of course the tail come up and the engine went into the mud. And the tower, of course, called for the emergency people to come, and I
You got in trouble. Huh?
Yeah, I had a problem then, so they took me to the hospital, and there was nothing. I wasn't hurt or anything. And
Didn't they see this other plane coming?
Well, as I say, this pilot, this young cadet, we had accidents because we were all learning to fly, and there would always be an accident of one sort or another. In this case, it wasn't. It just put the aircraft out of commission for a while. It didn't do any extensive damage to it. But anyway, story was that they had a lot of pilots. They had more than they needed. So if you made any mistake, why, you would be thrown out. And of course, when they saw the aircraft in the mud, why, I was in big trouble. And so I had to have 2 rides, one a civilian ride, what we call. A civilian instructor would take you up and see what you had learned and pull different things of maneuvers and so on. Then the Army would send up a captain and he would try it. So the long story was that I was not going to be a cadet anymore, which was a big disappointment. And
But you weren't killed, or you didn't kill the other pilot?
I wasn't injured or hurt at all. But I still liked flying, so then I applied to be a gunner on B-24s and ended up at Lincoln, Nebraska. We flew there, the B-24, I was a ball turret gunner because I was fairly small, and the ball turret is hanging below the fuselage, and so you can't have a very large person in there. And we flew all over the western part of the U.S. We'd be up in the air 6 hours, which is a long time. And
you can't move around much.
No. And of course, I would get out of the turret after a while because you couldn't stay down there indefinitely. And
you got into the fuselage of the plane?
Yeah, we would go in. Yeah, we'd look down 10,000 feet or 15,000 feet, because the inside of the bomber is not finished off like a commercial aircraft. It's a shell. And well, it has to be for weight purposes. It's carrying bombs, not carrying people. So they purposely design it that way. And so I stayed for quite a while as a gunner. Was at Buckley Field in Colorado for a while, and then Laredo, Texas for a while. And
but you didn't see action, really?
no, after a while I decided that I'd had enough of being a gunner, especially in a ball turret, and I decided that I didn't want to fly anymore. And it's about the only thing in the military that you can say that you don't want to do and not have to do it. Usually, if you're told to do it, you do it. But in the case of flying, it's voluntary, and I didn't fly any. I then quit flying.
It must have been a disappointment.
Yeah, it was a big, because what I wanted to do was be a pilot, and but it didn't happen. And so
Well, when you were a pilot, did you have any special dress? Or
we
scarf?
had a flying suit, of course, and and of course when we were up, 20,000 feet or so, we were on oxygen. Had to have oxygen, of course.
I guess you need it there.
Yeah, you have to at that point, and it's very cold up there. It's not like a commercial aircraft where there's no heat. It's really cold.
Well, I remember something or other about electrical heating elements in the flying suit sometimes.
Yeah, we didn't.
Keep you warm?
We didn't have those. No, and, we had. Of course, we were wearing our parachutes, because quite often those aircraft those engines would catch fire.
Oh.
And then you had no choice. You had to jump. And I always kind of dreaded, I wasn't looking forward to jumping. And but every once in a while, they would catch fire. And of course, everybody had to get out.
Your plane?
No, ours, I was lucky. Ours never did. And it was funny when riding down the runway, taking off, I would sit right behind the pilot, and he was even younger than I was, and and on the back of his seat it said Ford Motor Company, Willow Run, Michigan. So we were riding in a Ford in 1943, but and of course those aircraft would, if we got up 200 miles an hour, was fast with that at that time compared to what we have now, and
It's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah,
When it's
yeah.
fast.
And there were a lot of, when in the training, the civilians, I don't think, realized how many aircraft would crash, because we're all young and we're all learning. And when they're learning, why, they make mistakes. And of course, with aircraft, if it's a real bad mistake, why, you crash. And usually they would, of course, catch fire, and if they didn't have time to get out, well, of course, they were burned to death. But,
Oh,
you know, but
you say that so calmly.
yeah. Well, it did really. It was funny. The guys the guys that ran ambulances, of course, would have to pick them up, and they just put them in the ambulance and go in and have chow at the mess hall, and take them back for wherever they were going to be, shipped out of the base, and
How did the public look at you aviators at that point?
they were. I think they had were very favorably. They liked pilots, and of course, it was relatively relatively new.
Yeah.
Originally.
Oh, we have another phone call.
Oh.
You're a popular man today.
Oh.
Welcome to Struggles of the Spirit. Tell us about your call.
I had a question for Mr. Fenix as far as durability of the planes then compared to the mechanical ability and dependability of the planes today. How do they compare, do you think?
Well, that's a good question. I think that.
Were they more well made?
Yeah, I think they were. I don't recall anything where it was of any great failure from a mechanical standpoint. I think there were. Of course, we flew such a slow speed compared to what they fly now. So, aircraft now are probably built stronger to withstand, the excessive speed that they fly now. So in that way, it would be maybe it wouldn't be a good comparison that the era that we flew in was a lot slower speed, and of course and I don't think they flew as high. We didn't fly as high as they do now, and so it's and of course now they're all jets, which the engines are totally. The jet is a entirely different engine from what we had. Ours are piston aircraft, and the jets is absolutely totally different from the aircraft we had.
Were you able to talk to the pilot?
Yeah.
Radio?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When we were taking off, we were. I was in training, and I imagine if we were in combat, it might be a different. It'd be a little different situation. But as I said, when I sat behind the pilot, why, I could talk to him, and we had 4 engines, of course, and we had over 2,000 gallons. Of course, we burned 100-octane gasoline, which, of course, if we crashed with 100 octane, that would explode and really burn. And we'd carry, as I say, that amount of gasoline. And I forgot, I think it was like 80 gallons of oil to lubricate those 4 engines. Plus we had oxygen, so everything was flammable. Gasoline, oil, and oxygen. So if there was any mishap, it was going to blow up and really burn.
And also, I mean, I never was in the war, and but I certainly have followed stories about the war. And if your plane was hit by enemy fire, it could catch on fire from the bullets.
Right. That was one thing. I think that because they were slow moving, of course they would be easier target.
Right.
But the B-17 was really the famous bomber in World War II.
But the Flying Fortress?
It was called the Flying Fortress, and it landed like a speed of maybe 40 miles an hour, which is nothing. You know, when they land now at 150 miles an hour, these fighter planes do, and well, so they could withstand. They would get really badly hit with enemy fighter planes and still survive and get back to. The 8th Air Force was in England, of course, and the B-17 was the main aircraft that bombed Germany, and along with the English, and so in a way, landing at 35, 40 miles an hour was a plus for them, because if they're badly banged up, why they needed everything they could to get down with a fairly safe landing, and with the high-speed aircraft now would never survive, I don't think, what they did. They were known for being so badly banged up that it was amazing they ever made it back to base, but they did.
Wasn't there a song about a wing and a prayer?
Yes, there was, yeah, it was a famous song, yeah. And of course the Army Air Corps, Off We Go Into the Wild Blue Yonder, was our song for the Army Air Corps.
Yeah.
And,
Well, sir, you raised the question. You have anything else you want to ask Bob, about his experiences? Maybe he's not on the line anymore.
no, but yeah, it's
Well, we've heard in movies and books about the flamboyant life style of pilots and
yes,
maybe gunners.
yeah, that's
too.
true.
Is that true?
Yeah, a lot of it is true, I think. They seem to take a lot of chances, and of course they were all officers. If I'd have finished, I would have been an officer, and
That came automatically?
so yes, they were automatically commissioned, and of course they would, when they weren't flying, they'd hang out at the officers' club, and of course they would have a few drinks, of course.
So that was true.
Yeah, that was true. Yeah, and they.
Did you have a woman on each arm? I'm asking you a personal question.
No, I didn't. No, and although it was funny in Guam, the USO was in Guam, and USO would come to entertain us guys that were there, and when I was in Guam, which would be, as I say, in '44. One of the gals that came was a girl from Burlington, Vermont.
No kidding.
Yeah, and
Really?
yeah, I danced with her.
That's
And
neat.
yeah, it was interesting that just by chance, and we were 10,000 miles from Burlington, and she was with the USO, and so we had coffee and a donut there, and talked about it, and
You must have both been surprised.
yeah, we was, yeah, it was very different. They in Guam, it's been a territory of our country for a number of years, and the people are either Polynesian or what have you, and we built them when we took the island. A lot of their homes are destroyed, so our government built new homes for them, which of course in Guam it's tropical. There's no problem of heating. And the homes they never put windows in the openings. They were, I don't know what that reason was, but they,
Just open?
yeah, they're just open. They were like our camps that we would have on the lake here. And
Didn't they get mosquitoes?
I would think so. I visited one of them and had a meal with them. They had water buffalo there.
Wow.
And they would produce, for rice. They had some rice fields in Guam in those days, in '44, and of course Guam is where the B-29s took the atomic bomb to Japan, and it's a very humid climate, nothing compared to Hawaii. Hawaii is so much better than Guam. It's such a humid, hot climate.
Because I've been in Hawaii and it's quite pleasant.
Yes, I liked Hawaii. I was in Hawaii for quite a while, and I enjoyed Hawaii very much. And
So why is Guam so much more?
I don't know.
humid?
Apparently it's where it's located in relation to the equator, I think, and for some reason it's nowhere near as pleasant as Hawaii. It doesn't have that ocean breeze that Hawaii has. Hawaii is much more developed, of course, and Guam is. When I was there, the capital was Agana. I think it's Agana, Agana, and very humid.
I want to ask you a personal question here, Bob. Obviously, you're an active man, even though you're over 21 years old. What enables you to have such an active, upbeat attitude? What do you attribute it to?
I don't know. I'm curious about things, and
Your curiosity.
yeah,
helps.
yeah. I like to find out more and more. No matter what it is, I like to. I read quite a lot, and well, I think you have, and I like, I do woodworking and I do other things to
With your hands.
occupy with my hands, and so it's. I think if you do that, you don't just get so lethargic as some, where they just sit there and do nothing.
Yeah, a lot of older people.
Yeah.
Just-
Maybe they can't help it. I don't know. I don't want to criticize them, but
It's not your style.
no,
though.
I like to be moving. I worked on a farm, and so I've always, I guess once you work on a farm when you're young, we always got up at 4:45 in the morning, 5 o'clock, and I still get up at 5 now. So
Really?
yeah,
You haven't retired yet.
no, I'm not going to retire. No, I think you have to keep, have some interest and keep moving, and I think you enjoy things more that way.
Well, the word retire means you're going to go to bed.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go to bed when I'm 65 years old.
No, gosh, no. And TV is all right, but I think it has to me, has a lot of limitations as far as I'm concerned. Most of the stuff I don't care about.
You'd rather be flying in an airplane.
Yeah, it would be more fun.
Yeah.
It was. I really enjoyed that day on June 28th. I never thought I'd get in that aircraft again when I left it in
Was it hard?
in Cape Girardeau.
Was it hard to remember what
No.
you do to fly?
No.
Or is it like a bicycle, riding a bike?
It was still, as I say, a stick come out on the floor, and you steer it that way. They had, do the tail, you have 2 pedals, right and left, right foot and left foot.
That's for your rudder.
Yeah, for the rudder, yeah. And,
How about ailerons?
I didn't, I didn't check that. The aircraft I had in Missouri, one of the criticism of it was that it tended to be nose heavy, and so it would tend to dive. And we used to call it the trim tab to try to have it, fly level. But it had the same as this, well, I guess it was, the aircraft I flew on June 28th was made in 1941. And of course, the one I flew in Missouri was probably the same in 1941. So they're 67 years old or more. And, but they're in perfect condition. They keep them right up to par. As I say, when I was flying in Missouri, I was not as careful as I was Saturday. I was very, very careful with, which you wouldn't have been if you were back in those days.
21-year-old.
Yeah, you're not afraid, and you're not as careful. But it was a wonderful experience.
Don't 21-year-olds get anxious about doing the wrong thing or crashing? Or
I don't know, I think they probably just don't think about it enough, where they just almost automatically do something that's really stupid in a way. And as I say, I think you want to try, I wanted to see how fast it would fly, so I went up and I brought it down, and it does do 186 miles an hour.
now, when you flew it recently, you mean?
No, not recently. Oh,
When
no,
you-
I
when you
wouldn't
were-
do it now.
when you
Oh,
were
no.
a young man.
No, that was when I was in Missouri, No, the pilot was there. The pilot was a wonderful pilot that I had on June 28th. He said he started flying when he was about 10 years old. He loved flying. It's his whole life. And so they, I guess when they, someone he makes his living as a pilot in instructing and taking this tour thing that I flew there on June 28th.
I used to do a fair amount of flying as a passenger, never as a pilot.
Yeah.
I wish I had been as a pilot. But I flew a lot on beach crafts,
Yeah.
which were 18-seaters, just 18 seats, and no stewardess, no wait staff, not even a cup of coffee. and there was no door between you and the pilot. So if you sat in the first row, you'd look out the space between the pilot and co-pilot, and you could look out his windshield
Yeah.
and see what he was doing. And I always loved that position because it felt almost like I was flying.
Yeah.
And,
you were right behind the pilot.
Right behind the pilot.
Yeah.
And then I always thought it was beautiful in the evening, as you were coming into like Burlington, you could see ahead of you the lights on the
All
runway.
those markers. Yeah.
All the markers.
Yeah.
And it was just
Yeah.
great to see them all there.
Yeah. It's night flying.
You must have enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Or they didn't have those markers when you were
No.
in the Air Force.
No. And but of course it's interesting that Stearman was he was a pioneer and a pilot and architect and built aircraft. And Beech was another pilot.
Beech, that's
Beech,
why.
yeah, that's why it's Beechcraft, because he was a famous pilot, and
That's where it came from.
yeah, and Curtis was another. You've heard of Curtis
Curtis,
Aircraft
yes.
and McDonnell
Yeah.
Douglas, and they were all pilots.
Oh.
Or either that, or they were aircraft designers, and that's their whole life was aircraft. They loved aircraft, and I didn't know much about Boeing, but apparently Boeing must have had a great interest because there's still probably the biggest aircraft manufacturer there is, and they're the ones now building or taking over the Stearman, and
I remember one time I was flying somewhere, and I had sitting on the plane, in the plane next to me, a pilot who was, as we would say, deadheading. He was just riding along for the ride, and he said there are two different kinds of planes. There are dirty wings and clean wings, and that the Boeing, like the big Boeing plane, it has a dirty wing. By that he meant it wasn't the clean surface. It had louvers and openings and cracks and holes, and it was made that way.
purposely.
Purposely. And if you're sitting there as a passenger looking out the window,
And you see it.
you can look right through the wing that's holding you up in the sky.
You wonder, yeah.
Why do they make it like that?
I don't know. The theory of flying is, I think they call it the Bernoulli, and it's the difference between the air on the bottom and the air on the top, and it's where they get the lift why it flies. And
I think the Douglas has a fixed wing. There is no partition moving. You watch the rear of a large wing on a big airplane, and you'll see it slide out toward the particularly when you're taking off.
Yeah.
You would slide toward the rear of the wing and make the wing almost twice the width. And then when you get altitude, it goes together and your wing gets much narrower.
Yeah. The B-24 was called a Davis wing, which is apparently a different design from the B-17, and which apparently was to make it more efficient, or it would climb better, or it was obviously it had to be an improvement. And
Well, have you enjoyed flying as a passenger?
now I don't. I hate all the rigmarole you have to go through at the airport. You have to be there 2 hours in advance, and that kind of thing. And of course, now it's getting. You watch the news, and the people that are flying now are very irritated about everything they have to go through, and I guess it's a difficult time for them now to. So I haven't flown in a commercial aircraft in quite a while now, and I when I flew in Morrisville, of course I just had to get in the aircraft. I didn't have to take my shoes off or do anything else, and now you have to take your shoes off at the airport. I watch them and whatever, so it kind of takes the fun out of it.
Make
really.
sure you don't have a bomb in the soles of your shoes.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate the way it is, but that's the way I guess they have to do it. And,
Yeah. It ruins the fun of flying.
yeah, right. Yeah.
When my wife and I would go flying originally in the before the jets, it was the propeller planes.
Yes. Yeah.
And she would. This was normal. She would get dressed up with white gloves and a dress, a nice looking dress,
Oh.
a nice looking outfit, and I would wear like a business suit
Yeah.
or clericals, and I would get dressed up to fly somewhere. But now people hardly wear anything. you know?
Oh, yeah, it's totally different now. I guess you would say there's no dress code.
No.
There's none. You can dress as you please. And, but it is, I remember flying to, in 1956, I flew to Ireland, and we flew on BOAC, British Overseas, out of Montreal, and we were hours we finally landed in Prestwick, Scotland, and compared to now, just a few hours with a jet and you're there. Mm-hmm. And with the piston aircraft, why, it would be hours, and totally, so it does probably. That's a great, convenience that you don't have to be up there so many hours as we used to be.
Wear you out.
Yeah, it's,
So, Bob, what keeps you young is doing things
yeah,
and having a curiosity. That,
yeah. And I used to make trips a while back. I like to travel, and
Where would you go?
well, I went to Alaska one year, and thought that was great. Beautiful country, and went to West Coast and meandered around. I like the national parks; they're very nice. Yosemite and Yellowstone and Grand Teton.
Did you ever go on the Canadian Railroad with their observation dome on the cars?
I was in. I stopped in Lake Louise in Canada, and they have a transcontinental train, leaves Vancouver, BC, and heads for Montreal. And I like trains. I like scenic trains. I've ridden on several of the scenic trains, and so when the train came in, I went down and saw the conductor, and I said, I'd like to see the engine, where the engineer is. And he said, well, that's no problem. He says, I'll tell the. So he told the man, and I got up and sat in the engine and talked with the engineer, and we looked down the track, and I sat where the firemen, well, they call them firemen. They're really like an assistant engineer.
Was the train moving?
No, it was parked there. They were waiting. They just discharged passengers, and I guess they were going to take on more. They were headed, of course, back east from Montreal. This is in
Vancouver?
In Lake Louise, British Columbia. And so it was fun to look down at the track, and I said, well, about how fast you go? And he says, probably 60 miles an hour. And there's a lot of moose around there, and he said they run into those, which is a problem. And
Did they have a scoop on the front of the engine?
no, it was a modern diesel, you know, and so I talked to
Cow
the
catcher, I guess. they
Yeah,
call it.
right. Yeah. So I asked the question. I said, "There's a diesel engines," and I said the steam engines had steam, so they could heat the cars, the passenger cars, with steam. And I said, "Well, now you don't have a steam engine, so how do you heat them?" And he said to the fireman, he says, "Take him back and show him how we do it." So we went back to where the baggage car is, and they had a boiler in there with an oil burner and hot water, and they heated all the passenger cars just like you would in your house.
They had a line. to go,
Yeah, line that with steam went to every car.
Like
and-
radiators?
Yeah, and heated the cars. And so they didn't have to have a steam engine. They had a boiler right in the car, in the baggage car. And
But that steam
Yeah.
engine originally was for giving them the power
Right.
to turn the wheels.
yeah, right.
I always loved watching a
Yeah.
big steam engine
Yeah.
begin as it
Yeah.
started out of a station.
And they made a lot.
Huge wheels.
Oh yeah, they made a lot of noise. They were almost frightening when they would come in, and
They were.
and that steam would, I guess whatever they did, it would come spewing out of the side of the engine and make a lot of noise. But yeah, they were. When they had steam engines, of course, Essex Junction, you could get on in Essex Junction on the sleeper, have a sleeper car, and get off in Grand Central in New York in the next morning.
Really?
Yeah, it was very convenient, and you just go to bed in Essex and get up in New York City.
Why did they end that?
I don't know. It was certainly a convenience to go to, and of course with the trains, they would go in any kind of weather, whether it was snow, fog, or whatever. Whereas aircraft, if it's bad weather, they don't fly. And so if you've got a schedule and you're expecting to be somewhere, and aircraft decides that they're not going to fly, it kind of puts a problem to you for your whatever schedule you had to maintain.
My son lives in the Boston area nowadays, and he has to go on business to New York City occasionally. And when he first was living there in Boston, he would fly down to New York City. But then he discovered that the railroad had high-speed trains, and he could get a high-speed train to New York City, and it would be not much longer than the airplane flight, because with the airplane you have to consider all the security issues and having to be there 2 hours ahead of time. And
Yeah, and then of course the airport, to get into the city, whereas with the railroad,
you're right.
Grand Central would be right in the middle of New York City,
Big advantage.
or Penn Station,
Yeah.
one or the other.
Yeah.
And so you didn't have to worry about how you're going to get in there. So there are advantages in that way, and there's the fact that they would go in any weather,
Yeah.
no matter what it is, and snow or whatever. And aircraft, they don't go. So you have to make other arrangements.
I remember once, I guess it was in the 1960s. I went to a convention in Chicago in the wintertime, and on the way back home to the Burlington area, I guess I was living in New York City at the time, while I was in Chicago. We began to have a blizzard, and I was traveling with a friend, and the two of us decided to cancel our flight from the airport and to take a train, and we were able to get a ticket on the train. And so we didn't have a sleeper or anything. We just sat up, but we were grateful we could get to New York, and that snow didn't bother us at all.
Oh no. during the war, the government would ship. We'd go by train a lot, and I remember riding the Colorado Eagle from St. Louis to Denver, which is 1,021 miles, and this is in 42, 43, and speed. It was a fast train. Then we'd pick up I'd go to the West Coast, and I'd get on the a one with a dining car,
Yeah.
and the food was great on the trains.
Delicious.
And,
Linen tablecloths.
Oh gosh, I remember I was stationed in Wyoming, in Casper, Wyoming, for a while, and I finally ended up in Washington State, and we went by train, and we stopped in Salt Lake City, and then went on, and but the food was on the trains in those days was very, very good. Wonderful service they had.
Well, our time is up. Do you want to, in the remaining 2 or 3 minutes, anything you want to conclude our presentation with today?
No, I enjoyed our chat and everything, and it was fun to talk about flying again, which was very enjoyable to me. And,
Well, you've done what a lot of us wish we could do.
Yeah.
Never did, even a little bit.
Yeah, and so
So thank you for coming and sharing with us about your past
you're
experiences.
welcome.
Yeah. Did the pilots all have excellent eyesight?
They were supposed to have 20/20, and I had, when I was examined, it was 20/20.
We have a question. Bill, we have one more question. Is there someone else on the line? I don't know what the handle jiggle meant.
Yep. Yeah, there is somebody on the line. Hello, caller, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Well, please tell us what you want to say, because we're out of time almost.
I just wanted to call and thank Bob for the memories. I, too, remember that flight and thought it was the greatest thing because I was so young and inexperienced. I've enjoyed the hour of hearing all of your happy memories, and may you make many, many more. Bye.
Thank you. Bob, you want to say anything?
Well, thank you. I enjoyed doing the program very much.
You have a fan club. So, I guess our time is
It's up.
just about up. There goes our music, so
Yeah.
our time is up.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed having you here. We've been talking with Bob Fenix about what he's done in the past, and we'll be interested to know what you're going to do in the future.
Yeah. Well, of course, I make clock cases, and I like woodworking. It's a relaxation. I can work in my shop for an hour or whatever, and then I quit. And I go up and read quite a lot. I'm reading Alan Greenspan's book, and very interesting about our economy and everything. It's a very brilliant man.
Thank you. I'm afraid I have to cut you off because we're running out of time.